if someone doesn't like Star Wars, do we need to even know that person?
You're flirting with danger there, Trev. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Quill and Hammer Reforging Fiction. I'm Zach. This is Trevor. And today we are going to continue our Star Wars kick by talking about how we would write the sequel trilogy with the same cast that they had already established. So, Trev, I think that's enough of a backdrop. Why don't you start us off? What are we going to do with this sequel trilogy? We have Daisy Ridley, Oscar Isaac, and John Boyega, who are the main cast. You can bring back Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher if you want. We don't have to, but what are we going to do? What's our plan here?
All right. Well, the first thing, broad strokes. Daisy Ridley as Rey needs to not be Mary Sue.
Okay.
Clearly, but she is going to be the Luke Skywalker of this trilogy. But here's a twist. I don't mean that in the way that that sounds, but like you need a Jedi, right?
Sure.
Um, and so she's going to be that hero's journey person. I don't mind the idea of Rey becoming a Jedi and being one of the heroic people of the series. Um, you just have to do it in a way that doesn't, you know, it's like, here, all the power. Here you go. You're just as powerful as anyone. You can't do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No. That wasn't why I became pensive.
Oh, I looked at your face and I thought, shoot, what did I say already to begin with? Should we stop recording
No.
and restart?
No, I'm thinking I'm just throwing this out there into the universe. What if, since you had the Ben Solo redemption arc in the sequels, what if you had a sort of flip-flop? Ben starts as the bad guy, Rey starts as the good guy, and they both go opposite ways. Just an idea. I don't mean to derail you. I just
So so
always
I
thought that would be interesting.
that is interesting. I actually think I want to amend already what I was thinking
Okay.
because I want Finn to be a Jedi as well. He should have been a
He
Jedi.
should have been. He should have been.
When you see him turn the lightsaber on, he should have had the Force in The
He
Force
should have.
Awakens.
He should have.
That that was a huge missed opportunity. They kind of just we're not going to get into all the things they did wrong because they did so many wrong things. So,
Suffice it to say, it was a disservice to both Finn as a character and John Boyega as an actor.
yes, and John Boyega, we love you. I think you are amazing. Come be our friend. Now,
If
having said
we
that, oh,
if we do get a Ray movie like they say is in the works, I really hope he reprises his role as Finn and they continue the tease that they had where Finn was feeling the Force.
right.
I really hope that's something that happens. And if it is, I hope he's willing to come back and give it another shot. But
Zach,
anyway, I digress.
that's
Please
not how
continue,
the
Trev.
Force works.
That's not how the Force works.
So, anyway, all right, broad strokes with the characters, I want Rey and Finn to both be um Force sensitive, learning to be Jedi. I would love, I mean, going to your idea um where Rey becomes evil. Remember her
Hmm.
little lightsaber keyblade thing in uh
Rise
what's
of
it called?
Skywalker.
Rise of Skywalker, where it's like, and then it. I thought that was really cool. I could see Rey being evil, and I would be more than happy with that. I do
Hmm.
want to say though, I don't want Ben to become good. I think Kylo Ren is too good of a bad guy to have a redemption arc. He needs to
Okay.
be the bad guy throughout the film and get worse, because that is something that we have not seen really, you know. from a character. You and I were talking about this, things I want to see. I want to see him kind of, I'm fine with him kind of being like this half really serious and then kind of a little child rage-ish. I don't know. You know what I mean? In the Force
Hmm.
Awakens, he wasn't necessarily 100% put together.
Right.
Um, and then in the next one, he ends up killing Snoke. I want him to kill Snoke and then get worse and more evil, and I want him to be the ultimate bad guy in the series. And
Okay.
I would love to see him corrupt Rey and have Rey become evil too. And that is the heart of the conflict is Rey is seduced to the dark side throughout the three films, and you've got Finn, who was a stormtrooper, was force sensitive. I still like that arc. And then he becomes the Jedi and abandons his, I don't know if you would call it cowardice, but like, he starts where he is and then he becomes the brave, I am a Jedi like my father before me. I'm not going to fight almost, Luke's solid moral compass. I want Finn at the end of the series to be that way. But the heart-wrenching thing is they were friends and Rey is corrupted and can't come back or doesn't come back
Issues.
and you don't have that, whatever that we've normally had.
You cut out for just a second. I think we
Oh
may be
shit.
having internet issues, but
But my camera didn't freeze, did it?
your camera froze, but your audio froze too. So
Ah,
that means it's not a camera issue, it's an internet issue.
great. Yeah.
So we'll have to let Ella doctor it up.
All
Thank you,
right.
Ella, who
Ella,
I've
you're
never
the
met.
best, clearly. Um, so what did I cut out anywhere? Did you get the gist of what I was
So
saying?
I got the gist. So you're talking, you want Kylo Ren to get worse and worse and worse, to become
Yep.
more evil, seduce Rey, but have sorry, to have Finn be sort of the moral compass and eventually bring Rey back. Is that where you were going with that?
Now I'm of two minds. I would love if Ray came back. I would love also if Ray makes a choice to be evil. I don't know if I necessarily care one way or the other,
Okay.
but I find the redemption arc to be a little overplayed. Not every character needs to be redeemed, and not every character wants to be redeemed. I mean, in real life, you have people who are just bad people and they get worse, and people who make bad decisions for good reasons, like we talked about last week in your Sith origin story. You can see why people are making the decisions and how they become what they become. I would love to see that and have someone unapologetically make these choices to become what they become because they think that's what's best for them or what they want to do. I don't necessarily think we need to be saving everyone. I don't know. What are your thoughts there? Because this is just I don't know if we have a full idea. These are just things we would really like to see. That's
Right.
kind of my thought there.
Well, I think personally, I think I would prefer to have Rey be redeemed because I think a central feature of the Star Wars films is that eventually good does triumph over evil, right? And
Right.
sure, the Jedi can be misguided, they can lose their focus, but at the end of the day, the Jedi are still the good guys. Objectively, they are the good guys, and that's not necessarily what we're debating right now.
Right.
But I think, a central feature of this of this kind of storytelling is that good should triumph over evil. That's why you've got the trilogy, right? You
Right,
start with A New Hope, the Empire Strikes Back, the bad guys are kind of winning, but then in the end, the good guys prevail, right? And so
right,
I can see what you're saying. And for that reason, I think Kylo Ren should not have a redemption arc like we were talking about. But I think it could be compelling to have, you know, Finn's goodness bring Rey back, you know.
right,
And if we are going to have Rey go to the dark side, my thought is that she needs to be on the dark side for the majority of the trilogy. So either very early in the second film, she needs to be converted to the dark side, seduced, I guess, or it needs to be the climax of the first film.
right.
Because I think to really have that emotional payoff in this character development, it needs to happen early. If she's going to have a redemption, I think that's how it's going to need to happen. Maybe it could be a little bit, it could delay, you could delay it a little bit into the second film if you're not going to redeem her. But I think it can't be like, oh, third film, she wants to go to the dark side, but no, she'll come back because then it's she just seems too wishy-washy. You know, it has to be these hard decisions that she makes, and then
Right,
it has to be an equally hard decision to bring her back. You know what I mean?
right.
There has to be some weight, or else you run the risk of it being too flip-floppy. But
What are your thoughts on I don't know. I'm trying to think of how to not, how to tell the story without it being like cliche, like they are both found. One goes one way, one goes the other. Like, what if, I don't know, I'm trying to think like they make a choice because you've got Finn and Rey at the end of the first movie, and Rey has all this rage, Reyge.
oh gosh,
But then you've got Finn and like there has to be that choice. I think it would be really compelling if at the end of your first movie when they have that conflict and you've got Finn and you've got Rey together and they've kind of been doing this, we need to get off Jakku or whatever, whatever we decide the actual plot is gonna be. She is like, no, 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 no. I've been screwed over too many times. I need power. I'm going with this dude. And Finn is like, I've been on that side. That side sucks. I don't want to be there. I'm going over here. And you kind of have this moment, you know what I mean? Where like
yes.
it subverts expectations a little bit, but not so then she's going and she wants power and then maybe gets a glimpse of what that really means as you move forward. And then she has a redemption arc in the, third movie or whatever. I don't
Hmm.
know. I like that idea.
So I have two questions, and I think I'll say the first one, but I want to talk about the second one first,
Okay.
so that we know that we're addressing these things. But one thing that we are forgetting to address here is um, Poe Dameron.
Right.
Where does he fit into all this? So let that simmer on the back burner for a minute, and then going back to Rey, Finn, and Kylo Ren. How are these three going to come into a conflict? You know what I mean? Like what's the story that's driving this here?
Right. So and I think talking about this is where Poe then comes in. And this is something that we briefly talked about when we were going through The Force Awakens and how we would fix it. But then, because of the way that we did the series, We started with how would we have done The Force Awakens? What would we have done to make it better? But then when we got to The Last Jedi, it was like, okay, the rules were how do we make The Last Jedi better? But we have to kind of accept what happened in The Force Awakens, you know?
Right.
So we didn't, so that's kind of why I wanted to circle back all the way to here where we're doing things that would we think would be a better overall sequel trilogy. But we touched on it, so you know that we thought, or at least I thought, you need to have something logical that happens over the course of 30 years or however long it's been since the end of Return of the Jedi. Like the remnants of the Republic or of the Empire are still there. Like they don't
Hmm.
just go away because the Death Star blew up again. Like you have all of these generals, all of the Grand Moffs. You have a whole bunch of fragmented pieces of the galaxy where everyone is just trying to grab power and you know what I mean?
Right.
Like it doesn't just it's not just like, hey, we killed the bad guy, now we own everything. And so I think something compelling is either you have the New Republic trying to consolidate their power base, and they need a base of operations somewhere. But then I think it would kind of be compelling to have like kind of this two or three-way power struggle between some of the remnants of the Empire, where like you've got, you know, like I'm trying to think of who there would be, but someone like Grand Moff Tarkin who was like in favor before he, you know, died. Um, but like, you know, like show a realistic power struggle where
Right.
like, you know, if it's 30 years later, you have these, you know, these factions within the Empire that are fighting, and there's no one strong enough to really wrestle the power back. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Um, and so I would love to have that. I would love to have the New Republic trying to gain ground. Um, but I'd also like a third party somewhere, whether that's a criminal organization, whether that's some, you know, race from beyond the Outer Rim that is coming in, or if it's like, you know, the Hutts or someone. I would like some sort of third party coming in that is trying to gain ground as well, because that takes a more realistic approach to what a huge galaxy would be. You know, you've got
Right.
all of these different factions, these different groups that come together, and it's not implausible that everything fractured, but then over 30 years you have, you know, little pockets that are coming together, that are building alliances, that are being brought under one or two banners kind of thing. So
Right.
I'd like to see that. And then the inevitable, I don't want to call it a civil war because it's not really a civil war, but like you have this three-way power struggle slugfest between each of these groups to consolidate more power because they've all kind of solidified where they are, but they want to rule everything. That's kind of
Right.
what has happened. And so I think my plot would be there is like a key world that has not like resources in the term of like we're trying to strip mine a planet, but like like in the movies, Corellia is like a shipyard or something, or not in the movies, in the books. There's like a strategic shipyard that can produce more resources that has tried to remain neutral, or you know, I don't know how it works, but it kind of forms this battleground because they all need more power, and so they're all trying to fight over this. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? That's kind of where my mind is going.
Why, when we were talking about it, that was sort of what I was thinking too, was to have more than just the Empire and the New Republic, to have that third party. But, as we talk about it and as I'm thinking about, having Rey and Finn and Poe and having their sort of, what's the word, their group come together and have some of those important moments. I wonder if focusing too much on the grand political scale might detract from that sort of character development. So I think you're gonna, and I'm sure you were thinking this already, but you definitely have to have an A storyline and a B storyline.
Right.
And the geopolitical landscape is going to have to be the B storyline, and I think it needs to be it needs to be minimized, if that makes sense. I don't know if I'm making sense here. I'm probably not,
I
but
I I get what you are saying. Yeah.
I think I don't know. It's a hard thing, because I worry about getting that character development and showing the character development, not just telling the character development. It's
Right.
like
Right.
you see um you see Luke on Dagobah training, and one thing that is kind of missed between the prequels is you never really see progression from movie to movie of these characters. It's 10 years pass and Anakin's now almost a Jedi Knight, and whatever. But um my point is, I think you can have that, but it needs to be just kind of the underlying setting. So
Right. Right. So in my mind, I am not seeing like a, and maybe I wasn't clear. That's got to be the background. It
right,
needs to be understood. That needs to be in the,
the opening crawl.
the opening crawl is this is the backdrop. It's been 30 years since the Death Star was destroyed. The galaxy is in, has been in a state of whatever. Three main factions have emerged, da 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 da, and then this happens. And then the ship comes out of space, and that's where you start. But like it's kind of like you need that background, and then it's like in an effort to establish, you know, in an effort to solidify their base, the New Republic, and they dispatch a, young Jedi or something to Corellia. That's the only world I can think of to secure this
Right.
shipyard, you know, and then you have the plot going from there, I guess. I don't
Okay.
know. Something like that, but like you need the background established
Right.
so that
Okay.
you can have different players coming in, different conflict points, because that's the background is so we can have some sort of plot moving forward, and it doesn't like we don't necessarily care if at the end of the trilogy the galaxy is united under the New Republic.
Right.
I don't necessarily care about that because I think that's a little unrealistic
Hmm.
after everything that has happened from, you know, the Republic falling, the Empire. I think people are probably like, why would we want to be under you guys? You guys just keep screwing every world over. But like, there are some alliances and coalitions and things that I think happen, but no all galaxy expanding, um, you know, rule or whatever. But you need that so that you can have different plot points. You have that is a background moving forward, and then you can show, you know. like Kylo Ren, fallen Jedi, being seduced by someone who, you know, is a Force dark side user, and then you have that kind of good versus evil going on. But then you've also got some of the political stuff that brings in more than just, Jedi versus Sith. You've got
Right.
multiple things going on because if it's just Jedi versus Sith, then why would we even need Poe Dameron or any of these other things going on? Like,
Well, if that's going to be the case, then I think I'm just gonna pull the idea straight from Knights of the Old Republic. I think you need to be looking for a Star Forge type deal.
yeah,
You have, I think you replace the map to Luke Skywalker with the map to the coordinates of the Star Forge, where you can get unlimited resources and dominate the galaxy or something,
right.
something along those lines.
Okay.
And then it gives a motivation for all three geopolitical forces to be going after the same thing, and the conflict can come kind of head to head,
Okay, yeah, I
right?
can I can get behind that.
So I don't know if we ever explicitly stated, but are we still under the assumption that the third group is going to be like a confederation of the underworld led by the Hutts?
Um, for sake of an easy answer, let's say yes.
Okay.
But I'm also intrigued with a power from outside of the, you know, outer rim coming in
So
and
like from the
being like
unknown regions.
someone from the unknown regions coming in and like really, they have started. I don't know. Does that make sense? I like the idea of like there is a real threat, and maybe that you can even have like the Empire slash criminal underworld, or the criminal underworld can be kind of somewhere involved. But I more or less like the idea of like the status quo was fine for a while, and then all of a sudden there's this threat that can take over everything, and so now it's a race to get the resources you need to repel them and solidify yourself as
Okay.
the player in the galaxy.
I think I can get behind that too then. So the status quo between the remnants of the Empire and the New Republic have more or less been stable. We're talking like maybe a 20, 30-year Cold War situation.
Right, yeah.
And then this third power that can overwhelm both of them at the same time presents itself, and then both are struggling, or not struggling, but scrambling to find a way to repel them and overtake their other rival. Is that
Right.
kind of the idea we're going for?
Yes. And there's still enough animosity and self-interest on both sides that they don't trust each other to work together. And
Hmm.
so that kind of stubborn, like, I'm not gonna, nope, we're the ones that are gonna be in charge. You need to give us your military, like that kind of thing,
Right, right,
because realistically, they're not going to work together regardless of the threat.
right.
And so I think that is something that we would really it would provide a lot of really good plot points and points of conflict that you can leverage for the next three movies.
Okay, I can get behind that. Um, so we've established our grand scale setting and political powers that are vying for power, and the dynamics of the struggle between them. We've talked about three of our characters, Finn and Rey, are going to begin as Jedi. Rey will be seduced by Kylo Ren and the dark side. Finn will be our moral anchor and may or may not redeem Rey or persuade Rey to be redeemed. Kylo Ren will continue to be evil. He'll start off as juvenile, adolescent,
Yep.
and either in at the end of number one or middle number two, somewhere he will challenge the Snoke character for power. Let's
Yes,
talk
because
let's talk about that a little bit.
we haven't talked about that or even seen that in any of the movies, right? The closest we got was Darth Vader killing the Emperor at the end of Return of the Jedi.
Right.
But
So we have, I guess we have two examples of a Sith apprentice rising up against their master. Darth Vader in that moment, but he was effectively already dead.
right,
And Kylo Ren when he kills Snoke, but it was just a
right.
kind of a trick.
It was kind of a trick. I want to see Kylo Ren, like he has all of this potential, right? As
Hmm.
a Skywalker, as the heir of Darth Vader, he can tap into that kind of whatever. He could be a Force prodigy like all of the Skywalkers, but I would love for him to be unapologetically evil and challenge the reigning Sith Master the way that the rule of two was meant to be.
Right,
Talked about it before, but it's like, you know, the master teaches the apprentice everything he knows because the strongest Sith moves forward, right?
right,
And so I want to see that all out battle between two evil Force users trying to kill each other and assert their dominance and become the master of the dark side, the
right.
Darth of all Darths, you know?
So I think, and I agree with that. So we need to have like a head-to-head battle. I want to see them fighting. I
Yes,
want to see them using dark side force abilities and being
yes,
ruthless. But one thing that we haven't talked about is Kylo Ren's motivations.
yes,
What is his motivation going to be? Because I want him to get more and more evil, but what is driving that? I think Brandon Sanderson once said that the worst thing you can do when you're writing a villain is to, make him want to destroy the world because all his stuff is in the world. Why would
right,
you want to destroy the world? So,
right,
and that's a more kind of jovial way to say that evil for evil's sake can work in the cases of like the Joker in the Dark Knight. Some men just want to see the world burn.
right.
Sure, but that's not necessarily the most compelling villain. So, what would be Kylo Ren's motivations?
See, this is difficult because I don't think that has been answered. I don't know if that has been answered by any of the villains or by any of our protagonists in any of the films, has it? What is the motivation other than I want to be a Jedi like my father before me? You know,
Now,
I mean the way that the Jedi Order was set up was the Force sensitive kids. I don't want to say were kidnapped. That is the wrong way to say it, but they grow up as Jedi being, you know, given over to the Jedi Order when they're discovered to have been Force sensitive and raised to be Jedi, and that is all they know. The
now
difference is
I'll
Anakin, who didn't want to be a slave and wanted to, you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
I get what you're saying. I'm giving the Jedi a pass,
Okay.
and this is why, is because there's an understanding that yeah, maybe they were conscripted as children, but they are fighting for peace in the galaxy. They're trying to better the lives of other people. That's motivation enough to be good. As far as being a Jedi, I don't think you need to explicitly show the motivations,
Okay.
but for an evil character, I feel like it is very important to describe why an evil character is evil because, it's like it's why? You know what I mean? Why do you want to kill these people? Why do you
Right.
want to assert your dominance? Did you really have that bad of a life? Do you think this is the only way that you can survive?
Right.
But like, so I don't see the Jedi side of things being as much of a problem. And we can still get into Rey and Finn and Poe and their own personal motivations, but really what drives it home for me, what makes a story good or mediocre, well, let me say it, what makes a story or differentiates a good story from an excellent story is the motivation of the villain. Is it
Right.
a believable reason for why they are acting the way that they're acting?
Right. So Kylo Ren, I don't have an answer to, and I don't know. I'm trying to think because it's like he was seduced to the dark side. I feel like it's a cop out that is kind of used
Hmm.
um because they didn't have an answer. For me, the answer is um the answer has to be something related to his past or his parents or like a deep disagreement with Leia and Han's motivations. Now, I will be 100% honest. Uh, Han and Leia were screwed up so bad that
Big time.
like yeah, you can just say they were a child of divorce or Kylo was rebelled because his parents divorced or whatever or I don't know. That's so stupid. But like there has to be something, but I don't know I can't even begin to think what his motivation would be. Do you have anything in mind? Because all I can think of is maybe he's bucking against being forced to be a Jedi and trained by Uncle Luke. Maybe Luke is stuffy. Maybe, you know, maybe the difference is, you know, why shouldn't I be why shouldn't I be better? I clearly am. My lineage is better. I mean, Anakin Skywalker was a war hero. I'm a descendant of him. Not only am I a descendant of him, that man turned into Darth Vader, one of the most feared, powerful men in the galaxy. And I don't know. I don't know. I'm trying to think what it could be, but I can't come up with anything concrete. Because it's not like he
So
was had a bad life,
no, he
per se.
didn't. My thought is, you know, I it's the being seduced by power, the hunger for power is only a little better for me than he was seduced by the dark side. So I think, you start it as um or the I guess the root of it is that his parents lied to him about what happened to his grandfather.
Hmm.
And he finds out that his grandfather was Darth Vader and his uncle and his parents were instrumental in dismantling the government that his father was essentially second in command of, or his grandfather was second in command of, and they're usurpers, right? So
Right.
they committed patricide, and that doesn't sit well with him. And he should have been, you know, king of the galaxy. He should have been ruler of the galaxy, right? He does deserve these things. Like those, I think those are the seedlings of of his fall to the dark side, right?
Right.
Then, he's being trained at the Jedi Academy, and he is better because he's a Skywalker, but he takes those feelings and he starts pushing them on to the other students. And Luke sees the way he's behaving, and Luke tries to confront him and say, you can't be doing this. And then he bucks against that idea. And then you have Snoke worming into his ear and saying, yeah, you're better than Luke, you understand what power is. And so it's not being willing to correct your own character flaws that then blossom into this evilness, I guess. I don't know if
Right.
that even makes any sense, if that tracks, but that's sort of the best that I've got right now.
In my mind, I kind of want to turn him into like a hybrid, almost bookworm nerd kind of person.
Okay.
Like he starts off with those motivations, but then he gets into like theory of the dark side or finds some tomes or something, you know what I mean?
Mm,
That excites him. Some people just like it or not can't sit and meditate.
right.
And it's like why couldn't Luke just be a farmer?
Right.
And that is kind of the core of the Skywalkers, It's like they can't just be, well, I'm just gonna sit here and, farm, or I'm gonna, it's like they feel like they need more.
Right.
So it kind of, I like the idea of, those motivations, but I also like the idea of like I can't be put into a box kind of thing. Like I'm I am Ben frickin' Skywalker. I'm gonna, and so he starts learning, and, that kind of forbidden knowledge and that excitement that comes from learning something new. And I don't know, I'd like to see a little bit of that and maybe some
Okay.
flashbacks. Um, but it's the essence of, you know, like this is where the fun begins kind of,
Right.
idea. You just can't be contained, I guess.
Got too much of an adventurous spirit.
Too much of an adventurous spirit, and maybe that's where it starts.
Right.
You need, it's like he's okay for a little bit, but then it's like maybe they are holding me back. I mean, we don't do anything. We just sit and talk, and we
Right.
meditate, and, like where's the life of excitement that Luke had, or that, Anakin had,
Right.
why can't we do, and so it becomes this desire for more and more. And as you keep going, maybe you find that, I don't know, like, gosh, I fought this person and it was awesome. We had this epic battle. I fought this guy named Snoke, and man, he was the first person that matched my energy, and it pushed me to want to just, I don't know. Like
Just
it
something.
could be as simple as that to begin with. I don't know.
So it sort of sounds like these ideas are morphing from a film trilogy and into an expansive TV type series, streaming series that needs to be delved into quite deeply.
Maybe it does. Maybe we need like a fetching, like the Clone Wars, but the aftermath. We'll call it the
The aftermath.
aftermath series. But I don't know. So anyway, we're getting too far into the weeds of
We are
this.
getting into the weeds.
So let's suffice it to say that he's a Skywalker and he felt like he was lied to. Um And maybe he was. Maybe they outright lied to him, but like it starts with a little bit of distrust, and then you've got Snoke in his ear a little bit, and
Right.
and you don't even have to show this because again, we're trying to do a sequel trilogy, not a you know, huge series that explains all of these things.
Right.
Um, so maybe somewhere it's just explained, you know, like Finn can talk to Leia and Luke and say, what happened? You know,
Hmm.
what happened with Ben? You know, how is he Kylo now? Or, I don't know. Something that explains, but I kind of like that idea of, you know, they committed patricide. You have Snoke kind of whispering in his ear a little bit, and you explain more than just he fell to the dark side. He listened to Snoke, but you can
Right.
explain a little bit like there's a certain quality with Skywalkers where we just can't, it's like I don't know, there's a darkness within. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it.
Well, I think even just writing down the motivations and the backstories of your characters and having it set in stone, whether you tell the audience or not, I think that helps to guide their actions. And even if you don't explicitly say all these things,
Right.
because you've done this background work, their character will inevitably have more depth because you're
Right.
thinking about them as more than just, oh, he's a Darth Vader ripoff. You
Right.
know what I mean? So anyway, we really took that one into the weeds.
We
That
did.
was my fault. Okay.
Let's bring it back to more broad strokes movie. We've kind of figured some things we'd like to see. We've developed the background, um, and the motivations for each side to try and do something. And then it becomes a hunt not for Luke, but for the Star Forge. And we could call it whatever we want. It doesn't need to be
Right.
a Star Forge. But for lack of a better word, we're searching for the Star Forge because that is what's going to give whoever finds it the resources to repel this invading force that is just
Right.
too powerful to stop. And then you've got the two sides, the Empire and the New Republic, who are in this Cold War state where they're not actively fighting each other, but they do not trust each other and can't even be in the same room long enough to really say we need to come together and repel this thing, and then we could go back to hating each other in peace.
Right. Right.
So you've kind of got that. So like broad strokes, I feel like Rey and Finn can have a backstory. Where like, yeah, I don't mind that Rey was abandoned and left on Jakku and then found by Luke and trained. And same thing, I don't mind that Finn was not a defective, had defected from being a stormtrooper and was trained. But I like the idea at the beginning that they are kind of apprentice Jedi.
I do too.
And so they start there, and that gives you kind of a starting point where they can move forward, and then you can see the little schisms. But I like them going on a mission to try and find the map or try and find something. And maybe this is dumb. What if Poe is on the other side to begin with? And they kind of end up having to work together as far as like a like like they don't know each other, and then they're all trying to get to the same clue. They end up working together and kind of bonding, but Poe is just aimless because it's not we're the resistance. It's like I was born over there and I don't really care, but they gave me a
See,
ship. And
I
then I
was
don't know.
I was thinking something similar, not necessarily that he was on, the side of the Empire. I
Yeah,
think you start him off as a random, he's just a random Republic pilot.
yeah,
He's an excellent pilot, but he's a random pilot, and the way that it goes, this is my headcanon right now,
okay,
is that you have Rey, Finn, and Luke who have identified, where a clue to the Star Forge will be, and they need someone to fly, not a freighter exactly, but more, like a transport ship, something bigger than an X-wing, so that they can all go. And he talks to Leia and Han, and they assign Poe Dameron.
yeah,
And I think they tried to make him very, you know, similar to Han Solo, right? In terms
right,
of his characteristics. I think you take it in a different way. I think instead of him being, the rogue, I think he's straight-laced. I'm a soldier and I do everything that I am told, and we have to follow the protocol, and kind of this very like rigid to begin with, but then he has to learn how to make adjustments and
okay,
to um, be adaptable rather than just everything has a protocol. You know what I mean? I think
yeah,
that's a something different than, okay, well, you've got your Jedi, you've got your Wookiee, and you've got your rogue, right? So it gives a bit of a different flavor to the interactions,
all right. I like that actually. I'm we're grasping at trying to make it not a ripoff of A New Hope,
Exactly.
but still keep the Star Wars flavor and make it a good story. I like that. So the three of them, Rey, Finn, and Poe, go on, are dispatched to this world. You have a conflict between Kylo Ren and the two Jedi. Towards the end, you kind of have this group coming out and, taking over worlds or doing things in the background. Um, and I kind of think it needs to be a little bit of a heist kind of feel to where they have to go in and find the information, but it's not easy. And maybe
Right.
that's kind of where Poe starts bucking. He's like, "What are you talking about? Stealing information? Like, we can't do that." Or you know what I mean? That kind of.
Right.
But then you end with this conflict between Kylo Ren and the two Jedi, where Rey at the end decides to go with Kylo and join the dark side. And you can
Right.
kind of see that she's maybe a little bit angry. She has a little bit more aggression than Finn does. I'm fine with that. And
Well,
then,
and talking about how maybe Kylo Ren's initial fall to the dark side had him being curious and finding, you know, um, Sith tomes and that sort of thing. I wonder if maybe Rey starts the same way,
yeah,
and it alarms Luke a little bit, and so he tries to, you know, put her under the thumb, and that pushes her out some, and
right, right,
I wonder if you have a couple of clashes between Kylo Ren and the Jedi, the three Jedi, and Kylo Ren wins in the first one because of using some dark side technique, and so Rey goes searching against Luke's warnings and knowledge and his orders, and that's kind of how it starts boiling up. I don't know.
right. I like that. I like more than one conflict. Maybe to begin with, you have a conflict between the two of them, or Rey fights Kylo Ren, and that maybe begins the entire whatever. They
Hmm.
show up, they fight, Rey loses, and then that kind of sets her on this path of I need more power.
Right.
And then they get word that they have to go and find this clue. And then in my mind, I feel like Rey and Kylo Ren find the clue they need and leave together. And then you've
Hmm.
got Finn and Poe realizing how important the Starforge is. They have to maybe the second the second movie in the trilogy is kind of like, all right, well, we have to go and do something to get it back. We have to find a way to get back on track. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so they are searching, they are going through, and I don't know. I'm trying to think how, you know, they can work their magic together to try and I don't know. I have this idea of like a reverse Empire Strikes Back almost, where like
I'm
in
with
the
you.
beginning the bad guys win or the Empire comes out ahead in A New Hope instead
Instead
of
of the
the
rebellion.
Republic, it's the Empire. And so then it becomes like the Republic Strikes Back almost, where like
Right.
Kylo Kylo Ren is trying to, he has that battle. Rey is kind of watching him and Snoke duke it out and trying like, wow, this is what real power is. But so you've kind of got that arc going on. And while Kylo Ren and Rey come out as the master and apprentice and Kylo Ren becomes the master of the Sith, um, all of that's going on, and that kind of lets the Republic catch up and find another clue or do something else, but where they get to the Star Forge first. What are your thoughts on that? So the end of the movie is Finn and Poe get there first, or they find the actual coordinates first. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I think I like that, you know, and again, it sort of subverts expectations because the general flow of, a three-part act is the at the end of act two, the heroes are flagging, that's
Mhm.
just sort of by convention. But you can flip it around, you can subvert up expectations in that way. Um, I think we're running out of time.
We're running out of time, and that's why I'm trying to like try and nail down a couple of general broad points. But like I'd like to subvert expectations that way. I don't know exactly how they find a clue or if like, you know, something is left behind when Rey and Kylo take the Starforge map or whatever and they leave and like Poe and Finn are just kind of there and they kind of notice something and that leads them down a rabbit hole. And then they get to a new place and find another map or something. I don't know how that happens, but I like the idea that they are the ones who find I don't want to say find the Starforge first. They get the location first. They assemble all the clues, and the final scene is like, we know where it is. We're going right now. And
Hmm.
you have Kylo and Rey as the Sith, but they are they're behind because they had to fight Snoke for control of the resources, everything, et cetera, et cetera. So that
Right.
gives the Republic a leg up. And then in the background again, you have the outside force coming in and fighting. You've got maybe Leia or some other people, showing that the situation is getting dire, and that's why it keeps being more important for them do all of these things and get there. You still have to have that pressure from the outside.
You know,
But
and as you say that, I wonder if the big twist at the beginning of the third film is Ray, or not, sorry, not Ray. Finn and Poe get there and they find that this enigmatic third party has
is
already been controlling the Star Forge.
exactly that's what I was
And
going to say.
and then it's like, well, we're doomed. That
Right,
no wonder they were overwhelming us. It's because they already had the Star Forge and they led us here in a trap to destroy us both,
right.
type thing.
And I kind of have in my mind the bare bones is you they get to a point where like okay, Kylo Ren and Rey show up, Finn and Poe show up, and they kind of they don't necessarily work together, but they kind of have to, I don't know. I don't want to say like escape the Star Forge or do something, but like it comes down to they have to either take control of Star Forge or destroy it.
Sort of like the fight scene in The Last Jedi, where Rey and Kylo aren't necessarily allies yet, but they're fighting the Praetorian Guards sort of
Yes.
together, you know?
Yes. So I wonder if you have something like that happen.
Hmm.
Um, but the conflict then becomes, you know, how do you, because clearly Kylo Ren wants all the power
Hmm.
and he wants to keep the Star Forge. Maybe the final redemption of Rey or the start of the redemption that Rey comes from is she realizes that we have to destroy the Star Forge, and then she teams up with this like three-way battle between Kylo, Finn, and Rey, where they're like not really. I'm imagining the scene where like Kylo Ren is like, you know, fighting Rey and or not fighting Rey, fighting Finn, and Rey kind of has to decide, am I going to throw the Emperor down the thing and save Luke, or am I going to, you know what I mean? That kind of
Right.
thing. But but I don't know if I have a clear answer on how I want that to go. But I want the ultimate ending to be they repel the people, but then it's like now what do we do? We've got this Lord of the Sith that is about to take control of everything. How do we stop him? Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah, I
And
get you.
then Kylo goes down once and for all, I guess. What are your thoughts on that? I'm still that's the hard part with the trilogy is you have this outline, but then you need to work it out based on what you do in the first and second movies and the choices that you make. But like
Right.
ultimately, they have to repel the people,
Hmm.
and then maybe the Empire still exists, and you have like, a leader or leaders or coalitions or whatever, but like the Sith no longer are the leaders of the Empire, and maybe that's how it
Right.
ends.
I
And then,
think I'd be okay with that.
but like, but like the climax is okay, you have these evil people who've been trying to take everything over. What if we just kill that guy and then we're done? I don't know. What I don't even know if I'm making sense.
Well, I think as far as the third faction goes, as we talk about these things, two ideas come to mind. Number one, it's a hive mind race.
Okay.
And number two, well, maybe pseudo hive mind race, not totally, but they can instantly transmit thoughts and ideas to each other information wise. They're
Okay.
not compelled to follow the leaders every whim. They're unified, so they generally do, but they're a sort of pseudo hive mind type of race. Number two, they're highly sensitive to the force in just one area, and that is premonition
Hmm.
on a large scale and on a small scale. So you're fighting this guy. He knows exactly when and where you're going to strike, and it becomes near impossible to defeat him. An example of this that I think of is Heimdall in God of War Ragnarok for the PS5. He knows he can see the future enough to see your thoughts and know what you're going to do when you're going to do it, and it makes him almost unbeatable. And you
Hmm.
have to, empty your mind completely to be able to get past these sort of things, or something like that.
Okay.
But I think the two characteristics that get revealed about this enigmatic race is the pseudo hive mind and premonition. That's the only force ability they have. No force pull. That's all their culture ever focused on was premonition, and they
Okay.
have developed it to that degree that they can overtake just about anything.
Okay. So then it becomes you actually have to be one with the Force in a peaceful way, like the Jedi, in order to in order to combat these people. And so Kylo Ren and Rey, they may get there, but they're not making any headway against the leader or the group or whoever's on the Starforge because of that.
Right.
And so is the and maybe this is the question, is the ultimate battle between the Force users and this race, or is the ultimate battle the Force users kill the race or repel the race on the Starforge, and then you've got a final showdown between Kylo Ren and Rey versus Finn and Poe. I
I
feel
don't
like
know.
it's kind of like a chicken and an egg thing,
Yeah.
where like they both have to happen, but which one comes first? Because in my mind that affects the ultimate showdown, I guess, is that going to happen? Do you have they all finally empty their mind and try and be peaceful or whatever because the three Force users need to work together in order to overcome this race, this pseudo hive mind race, and their ultimate leader person, and they view Kylo Ren actually tapping back into the light side as so far-fetched that they are never going to, like, it's never going to happen, and so that's why they're expanding. And then he does and is able to, you know, become peaceful and embrace the light side for a little bit, or the lessons from the light side, and then they defeat them, and then he turns on, you know, turns back on, I'm the Dark Lord of the Sith kind of thing, or I don't know. You see where I'm going with this?
I do. I think I think you do have to eliminate the threat of this other race first, and then the final clash is between the Force users,
Okay.
between the light and the dark, and I think that's where you have to end it. I think you can't, because it leaves too many questions if you don't.
Right.
The Sith have to be destroyed. You have to destroy Kylo Ren at the end, and the only way to do that is for him to flip back on 100% Sith mode.
Right. And then I kind of like that idea is that they tap into the light side mentality of be at peace, clear your mind,
Hmm.
the force is with me, I am one with the force.
Exactly.
And so he embraces that for a second, and then in that moment he flips back, but Rey kind of have has this moment of clarity where she realizes that the dark side isn't everything, and maybe that kind of sparks her jumping back into the light side and her redemption and going back, like, you know what I mean?
Right.
And together, Rey and Finn defeat Kylo Ren and the Sith, and that's where it ends.
I think I could be happy with that.
Okay. I know we're running out of time, and you and I could talk about this for days.
Right.
And I'm sure all of the Star Wars fans, all of you fans out there, you could talk about this forever. Zach and I could sit here and just spitball ideas until we create a perfect thing. But what are your thoughts? What do you think would be compelling? Are we on the right track? Are we completely off base? Let us know in the comments what you think, um, because we want the trilogy that we deserve, right? We think that there is a solid Star Wars trilogy out there and that it was completely botched because there was no idea of how to move forward. They didn't have any overall plot or storyline or anything. If they had had a, hour and a half conversation just like this, like what could we do to be different but still tell a great Star Wars story, even that alone would have given it direction that it was clearly lacking. So, um, anyway, we want to know if you like our ideas, what you would change, what you would keep, uh, and how would you make the sequel trilogy that we deserved, to once and for all put the galaxy in a harmonious, balanced state. Zach?
If you want to listen to any of our other episodes, last week we talked about how we would do an origin story of the Sith and the Jedi. The week before that, we talked about creating a rule of two series that would tie all of Disney's mistakes together in one cohesive lore lore centric sort of way that would give payoffs to everything that was laid down in some of the other films, give homage to some of the legends, and tie everything up in a neat bow. For more content like this, be sure to subscribe and like, and we will catch you next week with another video.
Later.